Hello, Dr. Tassone here with Chapter 3 lecture notes for HFT6296. I'm going to give you a little review, talk to you about some things you've already learned. Actually, you're discovering that you've already learned most of what I'm talking about. I'm just putting it in a format that you can make a framework out of. So I'm going to talk a little bit about management today. And of course, management pertains to the internal environment of an organization, which is one of your installments for your strategic plan. So when we talk about the internal environment, one of the things we focus on is the use of resources. There are basically 4 categories of resources: money, materials, technology, and people. And when we consider management, what is management? Management is accomplishing the objectives of the organization through the activity of others. So then what are objectives? Objectives are targets for performance. What are strategies? Strategies are action steps to accomplish objectives. So you have management, objectives, and strategies, and all of this takes place where? Inside an organization, which is a collection of people brought together for a common purpose. In the notes, I show you a management hierarchy diagram, and it gives you 3 basic categories of management. You have, at the top, senior level management, which is executive level management. If you're in a hotel, that would comprise of the executive committee of the hotel, and the large one. And then you have middle level management, which is department head or those individuals who run multiple work units. And then at the bottom of the hierarchy you have supervisors. Supervisors run a specific work unit within a department. The department resides under a senior level manager. So if you look at that diagram, the reason I gave that diagram to you is it presents the people skills, and it presents the primary functions of an individual who is located at each level of the organization. So under the people skills, you'll see a supervisor is mostly working at the technical level. In other words, he or she is supervising technical work, technical skills. And so his or her number one sense of being respected is that he or she is pretty much an expert for each job within the work unit that he or she operates. And the people skills at that level are simply to establish and maintain staff relations. And then a person moves up to, and the function, if you look over to the right, you'll see the function, and the function of a supervisor is control. And this doesn't mean control in a bad way. This means control for what it was truly intended for in organizations. Control is nothing more than matching actual performance to standards for performance. Then when a person moves up in the middle level management, as you know, they require a different skill set. And at the middle level, they are engaged in the function of organizing, which is organizing activities among people in different departments over which they have no control. And their people skill at that level is peer relations, because they have to establish relationships with those individuals at their level who are managing other operations within an organization. Why? Because they rely on those individuals in order to be effective in their work department, work unit. And then at the top, the number one people skill of top level manager, senior level manager, is it's called conceptual skills. And that's the practice of building a big picture and sharing with everybody what that picture is, the mission and vision, who you are, what you want to be, and getting people to buy into that concept or that big picture. And top level managers are supposed to spend most of their time, pretty much all of their time, in the future. So that's the planning function. So that's why we approach strategic management in this course from an executive level. Now, within an organization, the objective of an organization, overall objective of an organization in the profit sector, is to establish cash flow and generate profits through revenues. And the way profits are generated is through two functions. The first function is the use of inputs, which are the resources I just told you about. And then those inputs go into a transformation process, and those transformation processes become outputs. They generate outputs. And outputs are measured in terms of quality, quantity, and customer relationships. Surrounding that linear function, if you go to a business school, they're just going to show you the linear function. If you look at what's around that function, you have two invisible systems at work. Remember I told you before about knowledge-based learning systems. That's part of being able to learn from both past experience and from current interpretations of what is going on at the current time. And then the meaning system, that's all about the culture. That is, what does this organization stand for, and do the people embody what it stands for? If you are a manager and you want to enhance productivity, the key way to do this, and it only happens in very small stages, by the way, it happens pretty much on a daily basis. The key way to improve it is to focus on the transformation processes. That's the systems approach to enhancing productivity, because you're already probably limited in terms of inputs, and you hopefully are generating increasing revenues. But in order to turn those revenues into increased profits, we have to tweak the system. So smart managers make changes to the system in order to streamline that process and thus make it more and more productive on a daily basis. And I gave you some explanations about that, some examples. I give you examples about everything. Notice that I repeat myself quite a bit, and there are two reasons for that. Number one, I sometimes forget what I just said. And number two, the old saying, repetition is the mother of learning. So you can't hear something enough if it's an important factor. Now, I told you before about strategies and tactics. Strategies come from senior level management. Those are action steps designed to accomplish long-term objectives, and those get turned into daily practices, which the supervisor handles, and those are called daily tactics, usually 1 year or less tactics, in order to accomplish standards. I give you, again, I think I gave this to you before, I give you a hierarchy of objectives and strategies in a diagram there. Now, when we look at an internal environment, one of the factors we look at is structure. And corporate structure, of course, is represented by the organization chart. And the organization chart is those boxes and lines and all that type of stuff. And people, when they're trying to solve problems in organizations, consultants, it's interesting because they often try to restructure the organization, which is a big mistake. The reason they do this is because organizational structure is easy. Culture is tough. You can't see it. But structure is easy. It's on a piece of paper, so you just move boxes around. Totally disrupts the organization. I always advise people, in my consulting days, I always advise people, do not make a structural change unless it's an absolute dire situation, unless it's absolutely necessary. And I advise people further, do not have dotted line reporting relationships or dual reporting relationships. So many organizations make this mistake. So in the beginning, remember phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. In your strategic planning process, that was chapter 1. And in the beginning, you have a simple structure. In fact, you have no structure at all. You have an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur does everything. And he or she has a small number of people, and those people do the things that the entrepreneur wishes to do in order to grow the company. Later on, when you get into a growth mode, then a structure starts to emerge, an actual visible structure where work is divided into subunits. When we talk about function, the word function refers to those departments you're familiar with: human resources, finance, accounting, sales, operations. Those are functional areas. And there are disadvantages and advantages to that particular phase. But now you're in growth mode, when you start to develop that type of formality within the organization. Another corporate structure is called a divisional structure. And the divisional structure breaks units out, SBUs, strategic business units, out by products or services. So you would have a division for one product line, a division for another product line, and a division for another product line. Those provide flexibility and stability in terms of producing work. And then there are huge organizations, not even huge ones, some smaller ones, that have conglomerate structures. And those are organizations that are diversified. They're in a number of different businesses, and they break down their financial risk by assembling their SBUs as almost independent firms that would operate under the single corporate umbrella. Oh, somebody has probably heard me talk about synergy. Synergy is when the outcome, and this is why we need to know about these structures. And there's more detail when you take a look at the notes and samples. But when you develop a structure for the purpose of accomplishing an outcome that is greater than the sum of its parts. So the easy way to say it is 2 plus 2 equals 5 or greater. 2 plus 2 does not equal 4. That would be the sum of its parts. And that's the advantage to teamwork. That's why everybody is so hip on this buzz on teamwork. I'll talk to you a little bit about culture and the function of an organizational culture. Another structure method is called a matrix. And it's a mix of both product breakdowns, which would be divisional, as well as functional, which would be human resource and all that thing. The way it works is you have a product champion that becomes the project leader. Project leader has project A, and sideways across the line, the functions are distributed to project A as well as project B. But in those kinds of scenarios, you have infighting and all of those type of things. You folks were mentioning your financial management course, and I give you a discussion about financial leverage in terms of strategic advantage, which will bring you back to those days. And I give you some discussion about technology, which is a key driver in the global society. And that's pretty much basically what I wanted to share with you in Chapter 3. Notice the repetition, because what we're doing is we're continually reinforcing concepts for the purpose of establishing frameworks or pictures in your mind. And what we'll do in the next clip is we'll talk about Chapter 4. See you then.